Hello and welcome to DFS Coach Talk. It is Friday, December 11th, 2020. I am Andrew Hansen alongside the coach, Joe Sarvati. And coach, you know what it means when we say that it's Friday, December 11th? That means it's opening day of the preseason in the NBA. And judging by all of those GIFs you posted in our Discord this morning, I'm thinking you're pretty excited.
I am pretty pumped. I flooded our Discord with huge massive crowds cheering because the NBA is back. So, yes, I am ecstatic. We've got NBA basketball preseason. We're covering every slate in our Discord. We'll be talking it up, going through, looking at strategy, building lineups out, full lineups for FanDuel, and then, of course, the Clipboard for DraftKings. Yahoo's not doing any preseason. They'll open on the 22nd. So join us. I mean, we crushed preseason last year. It's extremely volatile. It's not for the faint of heart because you're building some pretty bizarre lineups, but we feel like we have a big edge there. I'm ecstatic that NBA is starting, and I can't get enough of it, man. I'm ready to roll.
Yeah, me too. So let's give folks a quick overview of what we're going to do today and then what we're going to do this season. So this is, again, part 3 of our preseason preview, where we look at the team constructions, the additions, subtractions, the new rotations, the impact on DFS production. So we're going to do 2 more divisions today. We're going to do the Southwest Division and the Pacific Division. We've already recorded parts 1 and 2 of this series, so check those out on YouTube. Hit the like button. Hit the alarm button, subscribe so you get notifications when our podcast post. Again, those regular podcasts for the NBA season are going to come every single day, 5 days a week on YouTube. So again, today we're going team by team. And Coach, why don't you tell folks about how we're going to break down the season and what we do in terms of lineups.
Absolutely. And as Andrew said, we'll finish the 30-team breakout here in this pod today. And then we'll do one final, that 4th part, right before the season starts, just to bring it all together, see if there's any last-minute moves with the Harden or anything like that. Just firm it all up, check the injuries, set the stage. So that'll be part 4. And also, as Andrew said, if you're watching this right now, on YouTube, it's super important that you subscribe, hit that thumbs up, and hit the alarm button. That really helps us go up the chain in the algorithms with YouTube, and we really, really appreciate that. As far as the format for the regular season, Andrew and I will be doing 5-day-a-week podcasts that we'll post here, that will go out everywhere podcasts are heard. What we'll do is we'll look at that particular slate. We'll go game by game, and we'll put together some, fades, some real strong plays. We'll go through all of the injuries. We check that report at the beginning. So we'll really give you a full look at everything that you need for that day. And what we'll be doing is we'll be doing that the evening prior. So we will get that podcast up. Let's say it's a 9-game Monday slate. We will get that posted late Sunday so that it gives you a chance for the late nighters to see it on Sunday, or if you're driving to work on Monday or lunchtime, it gives you all kinds of opportunities to check out our complete breakout, of which we'll, be giving you all that information. And we're also adding a new thing for each pod. We initiated in golf, and it was super successful, and people really responded well to it. We're going to do a 2 brains are better than one at each show, somewhere between the middle and the end, where we're going to actually build a full GPP lineup on FanDuel that everybody can use. Hopefully, we'll do that so that maybe a group of us that listen to this can all share one of the Millie Makers. That's the plans there. So that'll be 5 days a week. And then we're going to have 2-day-a-week podcasts where I'm going to be going solo in our Discord. So we would love for you guys to be a member so that you can jump in there. We have all kinds of different packages, all the way down to a $25 1-weeker. And it, allows you to get in there, in those podcasts, because they're going to be membership based. I will be building some lineups right in there and putting some stuff together. So that'll have a different twist for us this year. So that's how it's going to roll out. We've put a lot of thought and work into it. Andrew's really putting the time in. So hats off to you, man. And speaking of hats off, I went no hat today. In honor of the beginning of basketball, I wanted to show my dome. I was going to paint it orange, but I thought that might scare too many people away.
Well,
but
maybe for the regular season.
Yes. But anyway, Andrew is still, really busy in the NFL season. Their next 4 or 5 weeks are huge. So, giving those 2 days where he can focus on football is really going to help. Plus, I like the twist of being able to go head to head with some of our members and mention some stuff and, really grind it out and try to figure out what the best plays are. So that's the plan. We're coming off 79.1% winning percentage in our cash games for the bizarre season of, pre-COVID and then the bubble. But hey, it was great. So we're going to continue to try to push towards that magic 80% number. As lofty as it is, that's going to be our private goal of trying to get to that number.
That's right. And the path toward that success continues today with part 3 of our preseason series, as we continue to go team by team and look at all the changes. So let's start, Coach, today with your Dallas Mavericks. What is your DFS outlook for your local team?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm so fired up, man. I am really pumped. I think, this has been the most excitement I've seen for a Mavs team since, 2011 when they won it. It really is, because certainly had some lean years in there, but, I still pinch myself to think, how did the Mavericks have Luka Doncic and Kristaps Porzingis and their age and their potential? It's mind-bending. So a couple of things with the Mavericks this year that are going to be extremely exciting, is the fact that they understood that offensively the Mavericks did some things they've never done before last year. Phenomenal. Luka, obviously being first team NBA, on some of the books, he's the second favorite for the MVP for the whole league, like above Davis and LeBron, as crazy as that is. So, we know we're going to get a lot of explosive offense there. But they also know that, defensively, you can't be as porous as they were last year. So every move they made, if you look at every move they made in the draft and trades and free agency, it all had to do with addressing the defensive issue, which they've done. So from a Mavericks standpoint, DFS-wise, we used to really target against Dallas a lot, as far as we knew that the other team, was going to score 115, 120 points. That is going to come down. So we'll adjust that when we're doing our defensive real plus minus and evaluations every day, that Dallas is going to be tightening it up a little bit defensively. Here's the other side of that I'm not worried about. People always associate when you play better D that the pace is going to be slower. That's not the case. You look at the Lakers last year, actually, when you play great defense, you're either getting a steal or a missed shot or a quicker rebound than letting somebody just move the ball, and use the whole clock and do that. So you're getting more baskets off of transition, defensive baskets off of mistakes. So that pace continues. So I think, in rostering these guys, we're still going to have great value from the Dallas side. The big thing, and then I'll throw it back to you, is when is Kristaps Porzingis going to be back? That's the big question. He's been working out, looking great in preseason. Everybody's raving, he's scrimmaging and things like that. But, Dallas is very, very cautious with Porzingis. And I assume that he will miss the first maybe 3 weeks of the season. Mid-January, I'm thinking, is when he'll be back. So we have to adjust that accordingly and then take it from there. But I think once they have Dwight Powell back, who missed all of last season, in grabbing a Josh Richardson, who has the potential to be a first-team all-defensive player, Jalen Brunson, who was a massive loss last year that no one talked about, he missed the whole bubble and all of that. He's a really good spark off the bench. He's mean, tough, and then let's see how these new guys that they added, in free agency, like a James Johnson. You talk about tough. You don't get tougher than that. And then, they brought Willie Cauley-Stein back. Here's some of the guys that, they signed too. Wesley Awundu, who could play defense. They drafted Josh Green, who's a terrific defender, youngster. He's 19 years old. And same thing, with Tyrell Terry that they brought in as a young guy, and Tyler Bay. So the Mavericks actually built an infrastructure of defensive players from last season to this season. And hats off to my buddy. I think Donnie Smith, this might have been his best offseason ever. Sorry, I went so long. I could talk for 2 hours on the Mavs.
I figured you would, and it's a great way to start here. So let's get back to one specific question, though, at the power forward spot. Early in the season, we know that Dwight Powell will be playing center, coming off the Achilles injury. But does Maxi Kleber start? Does James Johnson get a bunch of minutes? What happens there?
That hasn't been decided yet. And I think for DFS purposes, it's not going to be a fun situation initially. When Kristaps is back, yes, he's going to always be playable, especially in certain matchups. You're going to see Maxi Kleber, James Johnson, Dwight Powell, Willie Cauley-Stein, and Boban Marjanovic. All those guys are going to split minutes at 4 or 5, rotate around. Coach definitely likes to split minutes with folks. So I would say initially fade those guys, see if anybody really steps up. But then as soon as he does, Porzingis is going to be back. So, yeah, it's a fade spot for me initially.
Okay, great. Well, let's transition to Houston, another team in Texas. And lots of big news there with Russell Westbrook heading east, John Wall coming to town. And, quietly, they've added Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins. And I say quietly because obviously the huge news with Russell Westbrook leaving and what's going to happen with James Harden. But if James Harden stays, and let's break this team down as if he is going to stay because he's there right now, what do you think about Wall and Harden and these new bigs here, Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins?
Well, if you're a Houston fan right now, you got to be like shaking your head. What is going to happen here and what's going on? One thing I want to mention real quickly, Andrew, and let's remind each other as we go. We wanted to check in real quickly on the betus.com.pa win totals for teams, because when we're talking about them, it also gives us an idea of what, Vegas's input in is how good they think these teams are going to be, which helps in DFS. It's something you have to look at on a regular basis. The Mavericks, by the way, are 42.5 wins, which is a lot, and it's only a 72-game season. See, everybody's always programmed to look at that number at an 82. So 42.5 for the Mavericks. What do you think, man?
I'm going to stay away from that number. The nice thing about it is it is hard to adjust to 72 games, but last year most teams played right around that number. So you can look at last year's record as sort of a starting point. And Dallas was 43-32. Sorry, 43-32.
Watch your mouth, sir.
My bad. They're not going to lose every game this year. 43-32. So, right around that number. I'm going to stay away from that one.
I'm a fan, but I think that number is a little bloated. So I'm not all over it. I'm not against it if Porzingis is healthy, but I'm with you on the pass. And since we're there, and then I'll jump into Houston, how about the Rockets numbers only 34.5?
That's too low.
Plunging spot.
I mean, if Harden stays, they're going to smash that. They're not going to be under 500. And even if he goes, they're going to get a bunch of talent in return. I'm all about the over on this one.
I think it's so low because no one knows what's going to happen with the Rockets, and people are like, screw that. What if they're in a full rebuild? I don't want to get smoked by it. I say play the over here.
Yep.
The coach that took over in Houston, it's Silas, the Mavericks assistant head coach last several years. He's a fantastic coach. I hope they give him a fair shake because, he's the one that set all those offensive sets for the Mavs. Really, is credited a lot with Luka's emergence as a superstar because he put him in those positions to do well. So, I'm actually bullish on the Rockets because I agree with you. We're going to do this evaluation with Harden being there because it's senseless to do one with him gone because all the other parts are going to change with who they get back. But either way, they're not going to trade Harden for nothing, just draft picks. It's not going to be like a Thunder kind of thing. They're going to come, if it's the Nets, for example, they're going to get back the Dinwiddies and LeVerts and be fine. So I like the over there. And as far as looking at this team goes, it's very interesting. Not a lot of what they've done has made a whole lot of sense. We've still been trying to sort of figure that out. But, they say John Wall's healthy. I did read where he's going to be on an unofficial limit initially just because he's been out for a year and a half. So he'll get some minutes there that start improving as the year goes on. But, if Harden goes or, sits or decides he wants to spend 3-4 days straight at the strip club and doesn't show up, Wall, people forget his speed, and they said he's just as fast now somehow as he was 6-7 years ago. So Wall's going to be on my radar. They have a lot of nice pieces that played well last year with the Gordons and Houses and McLemores and PJ Tuckers, all the regulars. And then the two big ads for them that are going to make a huge difference is Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins. I think they both play huge roles. And as you had stated when we were talking beforehand, that Silas wants to run a 5 out. He still wants to spread the floor and, not have anybody clogging up the middle for the drives from Harden or Wall. So, Christian Wood can shoot the 3. He's going to be a terrific addition for them. And Cousins also can shoot the ball. So, I like if they develop chemistry with or without Harden. I think this is a dangerous team. The only thing that could go wrong is if Wall, who's often injured, goes down and Harden wants to go no matter what, and they have to take less of a return. There could be the potential of things going south. But initially for DFS purposes, obviously Wall, Harden, I think, and then you have to start looking at Christian Wood as maybe one of the guys that's going to pick up all that usage of what, people like Ariza prior to, and then last year Covington and all of that. I think that role is going to be where you can score 18 points, get 10 rebounds and 3 blocks, and be very effective. So I'm going to have my eyes on Houston. I don't think they're going to be a great defensive team, and that could be something to really look at going against teams that are playing Houston. So I think that will be my initial draw to their games. They're on my clicker. They have made the rotation.
Oh yeah, I'll be watching them early and often to see how this gels together with the new faces and Coach Silas. And for me, it's just going to come down to pricing. We'll see if Wall and Harden are both playing. Is Wall overpriced at that point? And Christian Wood, that's the price I'm going to look at the most. Give me something under 7,000, and I'll fire him up because I agree. I think he's going to get some extra usage and have a really good season. So he'll be a fun one to play.
I'm happy for PJ Tucker. The dude doesn't have to play center now anymore with
Right.
Wooden Cousins there. He actually gets to play against somebody a little closer to his size. So good for him.
Yeah, he might have a little bit of energy left for offense. He kind of ran out of gas in the bubble with those heavy minutes.
Chasing 7-footers around.
Yeah, that was tough. All right, well, let's transition to the Memphis Grizzlies, and let's start with their win total because it's 31, which, again, when you compare it to Houston, to me is just absurd. Houston 34.5 and Memphis 31. No thanks. That just doesn't make sense. So let's take a look at this roster, and the big question here early on is, as Justice Winslow is still out, Jaren Jackson Jr. is still out. What happens with the usage? Who steps up? It's not guys that are very exciting, but maybe somebody like Brandon Clark, if he's starting, will be playable.
Yeah, they really didn't add anything. I mean, yeah, I understand that, they have a great young coach, they have a great young nucleus. So I do like that they're going the right direction, and they're going to try to lock up their key young guys, like Ja and Triple J, Brandon Clark, those guys for long term. I think when Triple J went down last year, they just fell apart. I mean, he was such an important piece of their team. So I think, on any given night with him out for a while at the beginning, Ja Morant, certainly, I know he's one of your top rostered guys last year because he's got the ball in his hands. He's explosive. You could see improvement as the season went on last year. He was Rookie of the Year. So you got to take your hat off to him. There's always value plays, it seems like, from Memphis. There was a lot of times we rolled out Dylan Brooks because his price was cheap and he does decently. Grayson Allen started becoming a main cog in the rotation. I think we need to keep an eye on him at a cheap price. The problem is, what are they going to do at the 3? Right now, it looks like sleepy, slow-mo Kyle Anderson,
right. Yeah.
or Mario Hezonja getting some minutes there. They could go small and have Brooks and Allen in. Not a super spot there. The two guys that I like the most on Memphis, I know even more than Ja, which is, I know you don't agree with, but I think Brandon Clark and Joe Val are both terrific players. I think they'll dominate any inside action that this team has. Without Triple J out there, I mean, everything falls on their shoulders. And they really don't have they have Gorgie Dieng as a backup big, which is a nice backup big. And Clark can switch over and play the 5. So, you're going to get a lot more minutes out of Clark and Valanciunas until Triple J's back. And I think it's going to be advantageous to focus on those two.
Yeah, I agree. And I do like Clark a little better than Joe Val because I think he's more consistent and his energy just always seems to pay off. With Joe Val, the guy really has a lot of volatility with his output. I mean, he has that 45 to 50 point upside, and it'll come. And when it comes, you watch it and you say, well, this is no surprise. But then the next night he'll go out there and put up 15 to 20 for some reason. It's just strange.
He's inconsistent. A lot of that has to do with, Andrew, he gets in foul trouble.
Yep.
I had him several times last year. I'd roster him. He'd get you, like you said, 52 DFS points. Like it wasn't a big deal. Next game, he gets like 2 stupid reaching fouls or something, then gets completely out of sync. And he's the kind of guy that then when he gets back in there, presses a little bit.
Right.
And it's frustrating. I think Clark, you're right, is probably the better upside because how many times did we roster Clark and he only played like 19, 20 minutes? It was very frustrating there. He wasn't a major player in there when Triple J and Joe Val and those guys were getting all the minutes. So that's another thing to keep, to consider, that we haven't seen Clark at full. The last time I saw Clark play full games on a consistent basis is when Dawson and I went to the NBA Summer League the year before last. That was Clark's rookie season. He was the MVP of that Summer League, and Memphis won the whole thing. And he dominated. We watched game after game, 24 points, 13 rebounds, 4 blocks. So put a big circle around Clark. This Jackson being down at the beginning could be his really step forward in his career.
Absolutely. And one more thing on Memphis. If you didn't pay close attention to them last year, one of the things I love about Coach Jenkins, a stretch of games, they don't quit. They play till the final whistle. They play the foul game. They extend the game. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about stacking. A game stack is a great opportunity with Memphis because of that. Or if you're doing in-game betting and you're looking at the over/under, you keep that in mind. They're going to score a lot of points. Both teams are going to score a lot of points late in the fourth in a close game. So
that's a terrific point, and you're right. That's that mentality you tried to bring back to them. They're not going to give up on any game. So It does affect things. And if you're a bettor too, that also affects that number down the stretch. So keep an eye on that. As far as the over-under, the number you stated was at 31.5.
31.
That's a little low, but I need to know better when Triple J is going to come back. I would take the over if I knew he'd be back pretty quick, because I do like the nucleus. But man, the West is brutal.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a tough number.
I think the West is too tough. If anything, I'm going under on that number.
Okay.
Team number 4 today, Coach, we've got the New Orleans Pelicans.
Yeah.
And yes, there was a big trade with Drew Holiday leaving town, Eric Bledsoe coming in. Steven Adams is in town now as well. But I want to start with Coach Van Gundy. What do you think his impact is going to be? Because we know with Coach Gentry, it was fast-paced, high-scoring, not much defense. Great opportunity for DFS.
It's going to be interesting. Coach Stan has a tendency to be a little bit more of an old school coach sometimes, but I think his time away from the game, I really enjoyed his calling of the games, because he was doing the games in the bubble, and his insight, the way he sees the game, I love his philosophy and thinking. A lot of times, he'd say stuff that we would be talking about here and say, wow, he's looking at that the same way. So, he's definitely an outstanding coach. I'm interested to see how he adjusts his coaching style to be more of a player coach. I think that's very important. When you look at his old days of coaching, like when he was at Orlando, he and Dwight Howard would butt heads, although Dwight Howard, who is going to butt heads with anybody. But there were different times that he was a little tough on some of his players. Now, the telling point was hilarious. Did you happen to see when they had JJ Reddick in the news conference?
No.
He played for Stan Van Gundy when he was a rookie. So Reddick was like, I can't effing wait for the start of practices, because he knows Van Gundy's tough.
Right.
And so, but he didn't say F, and he used the whole spiel. So, I'm sure he's telling these guys, hey, listen, you're going to have to buckle it up and play, because he's a tough-nosed coach. I still don't think he's a player's coach per se, but I do love his knowledge of the game. I was documented stating I felt Alvin Gentry, God bless him, nicest man in the world, was one of the 3 worst coaches in the league. And I knew they'd make huge strides when he was gone. So I'm high on the Pelicans. I like the moves they made. I think that their future is right in front of them. I think what a fantastic move to grab Steven Adams. Perfect fit to bring together a young team like this with tough nose, hardcore mentality. I think that in unison with bringing in the new coach, and then the changing of the guard with Holiday gone, Bledsoe plays his tail off, and that's really the message I think that the Pelicans have done with bringing in, Griffin. I think is the best GM in the league. I think what he's done in the Pelicans in 3 short years after the disaster of them imploding and Anthony Davis wouldn't play, and to go from that to having a stacked young lineup with most improved player in Brandon Ingram, an emerging ball, Bledsoe that still has game left, Zion, who's possible MVP material down the road, and then you have a guy like Steven Adams. It's a really good core big guy. I think the Pelicans make the playoffs this year. I think they show a lot of progress. And if Van Gundy can walk that line of discipline to, being somewhat of a player's coach, I think they're going to be awesome.
I'm looking forward to watching it. It's a very important team with all that talent. Apparently Zion's in good shape, and he should be in a much better spot in terms of minutes. So I'll be, again, really interested in his price early, because I love the idea of playing him in better shape with more minutes. Going to have to watch closely of how the dynamic plays out between Lonzo Ball and Eric Bledsoe in the backcourt. One guy that I'm going to pull back from a little bit early on is Josh Hart, because last year he was one of those guys that if anyone was out or if he was priced a little bit lower, you could play him and be pretty confident that he was going to get a bunch of rebounds and be involved and pay off his value. But it's one of those things where with a new coach, you're not sure who he's going to favor off the bench.
Right.
And, is he going to put him in spots to get a bunch of rebounds? So that's a guy that I'm going to fade a little bit. And then we can't, continue without mentioning the biggest acquisition of the year for New
This
Orleans.
could be the difference maker for
Wenyon Gabriel. Got a local player here from New Hampshire. So I root for him a little bit. And, David Griffin, like you said, potentially the best GM in the NBA. He's got an eye for talent. And he saw that, hey, we need to stash this guy who, you never know. He might not play for the first 20 games of the season, or maybe he'll take a big leap in performance this year because he is really talented. He's got the raw skills, the athleticism. So you never know. Maybe a guy like that steps up this year. So we'll keep an eye on him.
I love it, man. That's what I love most about you, Andrew. You're just bulldogish, never give up on your guys. I love it. For our listeners that wonder why we're spending so much time on Wenyon Gabriel, last year during the bubble, we had a spot there where we rostered him a few times trying to get him some extra minutes. So it became sort of a point counterpoint on a few of the pods. So we all have some of those guys that we believe in that we're not giving up on. So you never know. Yeah. But, I wanted to say one thing on the over-under. I'm interested to see where you are because it's a very aggressive 36.5 number for a team that hasn't won really since AD left. So,
to me, that's a little bit like Dallas. I think it's a pretty good number. I wouldn't bet that one.
Yeah, I mean, I like it. I think they can get to it, but I'm not like super confident. Plus, we haven't seen proof that Zion can play full deal, throughout. Now, what I've read, unfortunately, it wasn't from the front office or Griffin or Van Gundy. It was from Zion. He stated twice now on those press conferences that he has no limits restriction. He's in fine shape. He's ready to go. So I just want to say, two of my biggest targets going into this regular season are Brandon Ingram, who I rode last year. I mean, he was at the cornerstone of a lot of my winning lineups last year because he was underpriced for the majority of the year, and people just didn't realize how damn good he was. Now, he's not going to sneak up on anybody this year. He's going to be higher priced, but I still think Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson with this roster build and with Van Gundy as the coach are going to have massive numbers. Adams, they won't run a single play for Adams. They never have. He's going to get the garbage points, the tip-ins, falling on somebody's back, rolling over two other guys, tipping the ball to somebody, but they're not going to run anything to him. So he's not going to need the ball. Lonzo Ball is going to be very particular about his shots. He's a playmaker. Eric Bledsoe, again, with his size and some of the matchups, he'll facilitate because he's used to playing point guard. So I think the majority of the time, we're going to have 2 point guards on the floor. So who are all those guys feeding? Mainly Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson. So those are 2 super high guys, in my opinion. If you're having your drafts for your year-long leagues, I know that you're not going to sneak up with anybody on those guys. But, Andrew, last year, I faded Zion Williamson more than anybody in the industry because I thought he was out of shape. I didn't like the rotation, and I thought Gentry was just a terrible coach. I think that all changed this year. If he stays healthy, you're going to see a hell of a lot of winning lineups with Ingram and Williamson in there.
Yeah, I'm excited to play them both. Let's turn to a team that doesn't have as many players that we're excited to play. That's the San Antonio Spurs. Greg Popovich still at the helm, so they'll continue to run those split rotations where guys are 22 to 30 minutes, and it's a complete mess from a DFS perspective. And it's going to be, a slightly different approach than in years past because Popovich has announced that they're going to continue with the small ball approach that they really started using in the bubble, which, okay, that's exciting, but there's so many guys that can play the 1, the 2, the 3 for San Antonio. It's going to be hard on any given night to really want to roster any of them.
How about if I do like we do when we do our weekly podcast, pass
Yeah. I'll pass this game. I'll pass this team for the season.
I'll pass this season. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you, I don't want any part of anything here. I really don't. First of all, I don't never trust anything Pop says because he does that strategically to try to throw people off. He may very well play Jakob at center the whole season. I mean, you just can't believe what he says. He's always trying to zig and zag, and there's strategic reasons for that. But if you want to try to figure out between DeJounte Murray, Patty Mills, Trey Jones, Derek White, DeMar DeRozan, Lonnie Walker, Keldon Johnson, the rookie Devin Vassell, Lamarcus Aldridge, Rudy Gay, Trey Lyles, Jakob Poeltl, Tyler Zeller, and Drew Eubanks. Those guys are all going to get minutes. It's a DFS nightmare, this team. And if you pick a Lamarcus Aldridge on one specific night when they're playing a team that doesn't, guard mid-range shooters that can rebound, etc., you can hit on it. But I'll tell you what, I don't think there was another team in the league that I saw people's lineups go up in smoke because they insisted on having Murray or Lonnie Walker or Rudy Gay or, these guys in there. It's a mess. And, their over-under's 29.5 for a reason. I think they're terrible. I don't think they make the playoffs. And I'm really not interested at all DFS-wise. It's a Russian roulette when you roster their guys.
It really is. And I'm going to stay away from the guards. The only two guys I'd consider on a regular basis are DeRozan based on his price. We saw some days last year where he was down around 7,000. So in that spot, especially if you're a cash game player, you could go there. And then Lamarcus Aldridge, depending on his price, I would consider him because he's the guy that's going to get the most consistent minutes and touches. And the news with Aldridge this offseason that he's continuing to try to develop the three-point shot. We saw last year that he started taking more threes. And so if he's going to get out there and start shooting more threes instead of those long twos, I'll have a little bit more interest in him. But in general, most nights it will be a pass. And you all will hear that on our daily podcast when we fade the Spurs at every opportunity.
I love you, Pop, but, I think that the dog days of the Spurs being champs are over.
Yep. It's the time has passed.
Yes.
But the time right now is to talk about this season and membership at DFS Coach Talk. There are two options for you. Here's the first one. It's tremendous. It's from BetUS.com.pa.
Listen up, sports bettors. It's go time, so put down the beer and make every sporting event more exciting by putting stakes on the line. Earn bragging rights over friends as you rake in the cash from each week's betting action, but don't settle for any other book. Choose America's favorite sportsbook with over 25 trusted years in the industry. You need a sportsbook with integrity and longevity, and most importantly, a sportsbook that pays. BetUS has your game with action on football, baseball, and basketball, MMA, golf, horses, and even esports. No other sportsbook welcomes newcomers like BetUS with their jaw-dropping sign-up bonuses. Now we have the best book in the industry teamed up with the best DFS provider in the industry. Make your first deposit of $149 at BetUS.com.pa with promo code Coach Talk and receive a free membership with DFS Coach Talk with full access to our DFS lineups in NBA, NFL, PGA, and MLB, the best in the biz. Sign up today to make straight bets, future bets, prop bets, entertainment bets, live bets, and more. No other sportsbook in the industry is committed to their users like BetUS. So sign up now and get on the winning side of the ball.
Welcome back, and thank you so much to BetUS for setting that offer up for our listeners. Again, if you want to go that route to become a member with us, use the promo code CoachTalk, all one word, when you make that deposit of $149 at BetUS.com.pa. Let us know on Twitter that you've done that, and we'll send you an email, get you into our Discord where we give out our lineups. But Coach, that's not the only way you can join us as a member. Do you want to discuss the other option?
Yeah, the exact same option is available as our NBA first half package, which goes from the day you sign up, because we're starting NBA tonight, all the way through April 1st. It's the same package that you get as a BetUS if you open your account there. If you don't want to, if you don't bet on games and you don't want to play BetUS, then you can just go to dfscoachtalk.com, sign up for the $149 NBA first half all access, and you get that same exact membership. And also, if you're new to us or have been wanting to try us, you can certainly try for a week at the $25 rate or the month at $75. However you want to do it with those time frames, you're welcome to sign up that way. But really the best deal that we've ever given out, in my opinion, is this $149 that takes you all the way to April 1st. Because, again, you don't just get the NBA. You get everything that we do. Once you're a member, you're in our Discord, you get all of our sports, and we don't do all crazy stuff with trying to be experts at everything. We have true pros in the NBA, PGA, MLB, and NFL. And we focus on those. We're giving lineups. We do everything. And you get all of that with your membership for the time frame that you're with us. So don't be afraid to sign up just directly through us. But if you do take advantage of that, awesome. DFS, go to dfscoachtalk.com and then betus.com.pa. Make sure you use the promo code Coach Talk, as the wonderful voice said there, all one word, no space. And then you can jump on and enjoy this money train that we like to call the NBA season.
That's right. And again, what makes us different is we're not a provider that just gives out content and podcasts and articles. We build lineups for every slate, and we gear them towards the cash player and then a GPP lineup. Full lineups on FanDuel, every NBA slate, preseason and regular season, starting tonight. So jump right in, take advantage of all the work we've been putting into this offseason and for many years leading up to it. All right, Coach, let's get to the Pacific Division. A lot of exciting teams here, some title contenders, recent title success with Golden State. Let's start there. Unfortunate news with Klay Thompson being out again, but it's going to open up some opportunities for Andrew Wiggins and Kelly Oubre, who they got into the mix after that injury. So let's start there. If sort of out of context on any given night, would you rather play Andrew Wiggins in DFS or Kelly Oubre, thinking about how they're going to fit into the Warriors' plans this season?
Well, I've dogged Andrew Wiggins for several years now. I think he's a huge underperformer, especially for DFS and all the different peripherals he bounds or he will. He is so scoring dependent DFS wise, he's a risk. And especially if he's out there with these other guys that can all score now that they've got several of their players back. So what I like about Oubre, he is new to the team. It's going to take a little time. So, you may want to look at it for a couple games. But the nice thing about Oubre is he will block some shots. He'll get some rebounds. He'll really add to his value that way, and he'll be cheaper than Wiggins more than likely. And so, it's going to be the value kind of look there. So to answer your question, I look a little bit more towards Oubre than I do Wiggins at this point. Things will change though with this team dramatically. We already have the fact that Draymond Green and James Wiseman, more than likely they're starting 4 and 5, both have some injuries. They will not play in the preseason. So we won't see Green or Wiseman based on the information today that was posted from the team until the season kicks off on December 22nd. So that muddies the waters a little bit of what to expect. I think it's obviously going to be Curry, Wiggins, Oubre, Green, and Wiseman once the season starts. But prior to that, as far as their bench goes and how much that's going to take away from their top guys, they added Brad Wanamaker from the Celtics for a backup point role. They still have guys like Jordan Poole and Juan Toscano-Anderson, who was a big talk around the league in DFS last year with all their injuries. Damian Lee's still there, Kent Bazemore, Eric Paschall, Marquise Chris, Kevin Looney. So they're deep. They do have that whole rotation that they had last year. And then they added the number 1 pick in James Wiseman. In my opinion, he could be the out of this draft way. So, this team's going to be interesting. Their defense was really, really bad last year. So you could target against them all the time. As far as targeting this team, though, Andrew, I'm interested in your take on it because, all these guys are going to need shots. Curry, Wiggins, Oubre, Draymond, he still gets shots up. And then anything inside with Wiseman, Chris, and Looney. I'm not super thrilled with stacking Warriors. I'm still from the school of thought. I want to see how their defense adjusts. Now, it could be night and day defensively because Draymond missed last year. He's an all-NBA defensive player. Kelly Oubre is a dog on defense. I can't understand why more teams don't want Oubre. He's moved around to like 5 teams in this year, and he's such a good young offensive talent with great defensive upside. And then Wiseman's going to protect the rim. So, the jury's out for me on Golden State or against Golden State. That is going to be one of my teams that I'm going to tread very lightly to see how that comes together.
Yeah, well, with Golden State, I think there's so many different dynamics here at play that it is going to be game dependent on if we want to target them, stack a couple guys, stack against them. And here are some of those factors. Coach Kerr has come out and said that he wants to ease the guys into the season, because of all the injuries. They've already lost Clay. So he's going to monitor their minutes and limit those early. So we're going to have a deeper rotation early in the season. And this is definitely a team where if we have guys out, I'm going to be interested in the backups. Starting with the preseason. If we get Eric Paschall starting and he's at a low price on DraftKings, I'm very interested there. If we get guaranteed 24 minutes for somebody like Kevon Looney with Wiseman out, and it does sound like Kerr is going to favor Looney over Chris, then at a minimum price, he's a guy you could put in there and expect a double-double. Yeah. Curry, I'm going to probably hesitate to play because of the lower minutes early in the season. And let me finish with where I started here with the question to you about Wiggins and Oubre. The funny thing is I am an enormous Kansas Jayhawks fan. And these two guys are two of my least favorite Kansas Jayhawks players ever because in college they didn't have the killer instinct. And, they kind of would just loaf around like Andrew Wiggins. We talk about it all the time. He's just out there loafing around. He'll score 20, couple rebounds, 1 assist. He's just no drive, and he's not in there, mixing it up and getting extra stats. And Oubre, he just, didn't have the right attitude in college. And that's, I think, been the problem for him early in his career.
Maturity, right.
And he does have tremendous offensive skills and talent and potential. And here's what I'm excited about, finally, is what is he maybe going to do in this culture? This is the best opportunity for him to grow and mature, learn how to be a winner from Steph and Draymond and Steve Kerr. And so maybe he will really take a step forward. And I agree. Because of the peripheral stats, early on, I am going to favor him over Wiggins. And we'll just have to, see how he develops and see how those prices go.
You bring out a fantastic points there. And I'll tell you, the thing with Wiggins that's frustrating is we all have always said it, but there was actually a 10 or 12-day period last season when Minnesota had injuries. It was before the trade and everything, and they decided to play Wiggins strictly at point guard. And he went, I don't know what it was, but he decided that I'm going to play my ass off. He had like double-doubles. I think he had a triple-double, if I'm not mistaken. He went absolutely nuts. So that effort and that skill level's there. He just doesn't bring it out. Now with Oubre, the reason I'm so high on him is exactly what you said. Definitely freewheeling kind of, give the coach or GM a headache worrying about, he definitely one of those script club candidate kind of guys. You don't know where they're coming from. However, he couldn't have landed on Mars and been, it's the perfect situation. He's got Steph Curry to mentor him, and Steve Kerr, I think, is the best coach mentor in the league. Draymond's gonna, if he sees him loaf at all, he will call him out physically. So, it's a greatest spot for him. I think you're gonna see, we'll look back at the end of the season and say, man, what a great fit that was. He really took his career a step forward. So, it's interesting. The number, though, is pretty high, 37. What do you think?
I'm going to stay away from that one again. I'm not going to play the under with Steph Curry and Draymond Green ready to go and all the talent and potential of Wiggins and Oubre, but a little nervous to play the over as well.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of like the over. I mean, I'm not thrilled yet with the DFS potential, but I think Wiseman is better than people realize.
Yep.
And I think that he's the best center that they've had with these guys there. Now, yeah, you can't replace Clay, but I think they're going to be pretty good. I really do.
Yep. One last more. I think that was a great signing. A guy that was making about $20 million a year there for a while, at 1 year for $2.3 million. Yeah. And he's a guy that if he's near minimum price, and we're looking at 20 minutes a night, I think that's a great place to look here because with Oubre's volatility, maybe foul trouble, technicals, he can get in there if he gets more than 20 minutes. With those guys, he can be running around, and he's the kind of guy who will get all those peripheral stats. So right. keep an eye on him as a value play early on in the season. Coach, let's transition to two of the title contenders, both in LA. Let's start with the Clippers, and they've got a new coach in town. Tyronn Lue has moved over and taken over for Doc, and I'm excited about this. He's talking about a faster pace. I think no matter what he does, he's going to improve the team chemistry with more consistent rotations. What's your outlook for the Clippers this year?
I think that move was somewhat inevitable. I mean, I think Ty Lue had the ear of some of these guys, even as Doc's assistant. I know Paul George and Doc didn't see eye to eye on many things. And in fact, for some reason, I don't know why, at this point, Paul George, has thrown Doc under the bus with the main reason why the Clippers faltered in the bubble, which, for multiple reasons seems extremely unfair. I mean, Doc was the coach leader of the whole scenario when all that went down with George Lloyd. And he was a guy on the phone with LeBron and President Obama talking about what to do. I mean, there were massive distractions for Doc in the bubble, and he emotionally showed some of those. So I think, to undermine that was disappointing. Nobody in the bubble played worse than Paul George. So to call somebody else out when you played like complete trash is just infuriating to me. But whatever, it is what it is. The question with Tyronn Lue is, he plays a little faster pace than Doc. He's going to, wants the ball to get up and down. That's going to help us in DFS. I don't think they're going to minutes restrict as much as they did. I mean, they were ludicrous minutes restrictions. Last year, the two teams that got absolutely murdered with the COVID and having to go in the bubble were the Bucks and the Clippers, because they had a plan at the beginning of the season that they were going to rest their guys very consistently, get into the playoffs in the middle, 3-4 seed, whatever it took, but their guys would all be fresh. And all that was wasted and went up in smoke because of COVID. We're in a different world now. Our thinking is different. We don't know. We have a vaccine coming out. Is that going to work? Is anything else going to? I mean, so right now, I think a lot of the mentality of these GMs, we've lost a ton of money. We're not going to have fans for quite some time. We need to win. We need to get in the playoffs. We need to drive. And you're seeing these contracts are still massive. I mean, you saw, the $190 million that AD signed for yesterday. Max deals, for guys like the point guard for Sacramento. Fox signed a monster deal. So they're still paying these guys. So now I think, you're going to have a little bit different mentality. COVID's changed all of us. I think it's changed some of the thinking in the NBA. I think you're going to see more minutes with Lue as the coach for guys like Paul George and Kawhi. I think that is going to be something that's consistent. They had a couple of ads, but bringing Serge Ibaka in is massive. I think that's just such a great defensive. They're so good defensively anyway, and adding him is just a beautiful thing. It's going to help them. Luke Kennard was starting to come into his own with Detroit. He's a guy that can give him some great minutes. We know Nicholas Batum is past his prime. He was an all-NBA defender in this league. So, you add the fact that they have a new look, a new coach, the same parts in place. They did lose Montrezl Harrell, but to me, it's an upgrade with Serge Ibaka when you look at all the way around with this team. They're deep. They still have Lou and Reggie Jackson and all these guys that were good contributors in the playoffs. If they stay healthy, if they go after it like I think they will, I think they could have possibly the best record in the league. I think they're that good.
Yeah, I like them over their win total of 46 at BetUS.
I would take it.
Feel really strongly about that with the new coach, with Coach Lou, and everybody going to be extremely motivated to turn it around from last year's extreme disappointment. And everybody apparently in good shape coming in. And, the depth is it's outstanding from a win perspective. I have some concerns with the depth in terms of playing the guards, for example, with Beverly, and then you mentioned Reggie Jackson, Lou Williams, Luke Kennard. I mean, this is some good players, some real depth.
Kai Bowman.
He's on the roster as well. And I do want to mention one other thought about Lou Williams, tying it in with Montrezl Harrell, because those two guys had amazing chemistry on the pick and roll, coming off the bench. That's why they were both contenders for that Sixth Man of the Year award every year. And now with Montrezl Harrell gone, we're not sure what it's going to be like for Lou Williams. Will he have the same chemistry with Serge Ibaka? Will he get as many shots? So I'm going to be down on Lou Williams a little bit this year to start. I loved playing him last year. And I am going to be more focused on Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So I think they step it up. Those are the guys we're going to be able to rely on the most in terms of minutes, shots, and DFS production.
And, don't forget a couple of things I think are key. If you've been there and done that before, it makes a big difference. And Lou was the head coach at Cleveland when he had two superstars in LeBron and Kyrie, and he was able to get them to play together, which is an amazing thing, to win a championship. And nobody's in the entire league, to me, is more quirky, weird, and odd than Kyrie Irving. He is a bizarre dude. So if he could do that with LeBron and Kyrie, he certainly can do it with Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. So, he's got that experience. He's won in that scenario. People forget Paul George was having some anxiety type of mental stuff in the bubble. He was feeling locked in. I mean, guys react differently to things like that, and I think it had a huge negative effect on him. I think you're going to see a different focus from these guys. There's no crowds there chirping stuff. They're going to be at home. They can sleep in their own bed, play on their own court. And I think you're going to see a massive jump forward for the Clippers. I really do.
Absolutely. Well, let's link to the other team in that building, the Staples Center, with Montrezl Harrell, who's now traded locker rooms. He's going to be on the Lakers this year, and that's part of the changes with that team. They had changes at the guard position and at the bigs. JaVale McGee is gone. Dwight Howard is gone, but they brought in Marc Gasol and Montrezl Harrell. So I think an upgrade at the bigs for sure.
I agree.
And then Rondo has left, and they've gone younger with Dennis Schroeder, who I think it's perfect timing for that transition. Rondo was huge for that team last year, helping them get the championship. But Schroeder, the youth and very talented, better shooter. So let's start with Schroeder and LeBron. Assuming Schroeder starts at the point, how well does he do? Does he take away from LeBron's assists? Do you shy with LeBron a little bit if he's not going to be handling the ball as much, or is it still all systems go?
I think it complicates things a little bit. They've given every indication that they're going to hand the starting point guard role to Schroeder. I think it's his to lose. If he doesn't play well in the preseason and they don't see that chemistry, maybe it doesn't happen. But as of right now, if the season was starting today, he would be the starting one. The good thing is you're starting two and the backup two. It's going to be a combination of KCP and Wesley Matthews. So those guys don't particularly need the ball or the shots. So we don't have to worry about that spot. But, when you're talking Anthony Davis being the key factor and Kyle Kuzma probably stepping into a little bit more of a role at this point, then you're looking at James, Schroeder, Davis, and then as a backup a little bit with Kuzma, which then brings you to the fact of, is the Marc Gasol, Montrezl Harrell job a complete split? If it's a split playing, for me anyway, that pretty much eliminates it. I don't want a 22-minute center, when you have a 10-game slate. So I'm not afraid on the LeBron James, Anthony Davis side of things. I think we have to see Schroeder might be a good value play early on, as well as Kuzma. I do think, and I've been down on Kuzma as well, I think he steps up a little bit more, gets a little more opportunity this year. It's sort of like a make or break, like, are we going to keep this guy long term? Or are we going to move him on? I think this is his season to prove that. So it's interesting. I'm concerned about their depth. I mean, if LeBron goes down for any period of time, we know Anthony Davis never gets hurt, so we're not worried about that.
Of course.
But, if those guys are out for any stretch, they're going to be sucking wind a little bit behind some teams because, again, they don't have just much explosiveness behind them. But I'll tell you what, there's going to be all those nights where we're looking at the slate and it comes down to, do I want to play LeBron or AD? We're going to have that same dilemma like we did last year because it's going to be impossible to afford both. But I think they're both going to be playable almost every night. This complete roster is built around them without question. I think, and I'll make this prediction here, since we're talking about this, we can pull this up at the end of the season. I think this is the year, granted, we tease him because he gets a hangnail and sits out. If Anthony Davis can play 62 of the 72 games, I think he will be the MVP of the league. I think he's that much better than everyone else. And as dominant as LeBron is, his age and everything else, even a 5% reduction, and even, we'll look up all those stats and have real numbers for you, but I've got to feel he'll handle the ball about 12 to 15% less with Dennis Schroeder being on the floor, which will impact his assists and drawing fouls. So I see just a slight regression with LeBron. And I think if Davis stays healthy, which is always the biggest if, I think he could be the guy that could possibly be the best play during the season in DFS. I think he's going to have a monster year.
I think he will have a monster year as well. He could be the best play on any given night. I do think LeBron takes a tiny bit of a step back from DFS production because of Dennis Schroeder, and they're obviously going to slowly get into their minutes here with the short offseason after the finals, which LeBron obviously not happy about. Interesting, though, that you would say that about Anthony Davis and sell your guy Luka short, because Luka's in the top 5 for MVP potential. And the thing about Luka is he has Porzingis, but he doesn't have LeBron like AD does, because that can really, the split usage between them, the split votes on who had the biggest impact on the Lakers' success. I like Luka's chances here to step up and maybe take that award. One thing, and I know you guys all know this, but I preach it all the time in our Discord, because it's unbelievable to me in DFS how many people, I don't know if they can't split it in their brain, but you can't let any variance to who you like better, who you root for, who's playing the late game, who's on TV. If you build any lineups with any of that affecting what you're doing, you're going to lose. I mean, it's that simple. So here's the thing. As much as I love Luka, he still turns the ball over too much, and he still isn't to the level defensively that I think he needs to be a player of the year. Now, yes, Hart won it without playing good D, but his numbers were like world record all-time numbers. So, if Luka does step it up defensively and can cut the turnovers down, I think he can make a run at it, but he's not there yet. He's 21 years old. Yeah, he's got a lot of talent. We'll see. It's going to be fun to watch. We've got 2 teams left today, Coach. Let's go to Phoenix, and they've got a win total.
I love the Suns. I love them.
Well, they've got a win total of 39.
I'll take it.
I think it's a little high. Okay,
it is.
Maybe this is the bias here coming out for one of your teams. I like Monty Williams.
I just said you're not supposed to do that. Oops.
Exactly. Yeah. So Monty Williams and Chris Paul are reunited. So that's the big news here with Phoenix. Rubio's gone. Oubre is gone, as we talked about. Baines is gone. So let's talk about the big 3 here: Chris Paul, Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton. What are your thoughts on these guys?
All true honesty, I think Phoenix is going to make the playoffs. I think they're going to float around, even in the West, float around that 5-6 seed. I think they're really good. Monty Williams is one of my favorite coaches in the league. Tremendous guy, tremendous coach. This team is completely bought into what he's doing. They went 8-0 in the bubble, which was talk about having an excitement. Everything I've read about them, everybody reported early. Everybody's fired up. Everybody's in great shape. The Paul and Booker thing, they're already doing everything together. Ayton seems to finally have a clear head, clear all the PEDs and all that, craziness. You've got a great coach and a great mentor that's put his arms around this team. Then he adds Chris Paul to a team that almost made the playoffs last year, and he's bought into wanting to win this. He thinks they can win. So that's your number one. The second is I can't believe they were able to get Jay Crowder from the Heat. That shocked me because Crowder was such an integral part of the Heat. The Heat don't make the finals without Jay Crowder. I'm just telling you. He did all the dirty work, some defensive things on everybody from LeBron on down, hit big threes down the stretch. He is the perfect glue guy for this team, and nobody works harder. So you've got a veteran point guard in Chris Paul. You've got Devin Booker, arguably the best shooter in the league, right behind Curry, without question. And then you have Mikal Bridges, who showed that he was really taking his game to the next level as a youngster, along with Cam Johnson, who did the same thing. Look at Cam Johnson's stats in the bubble. They were ridiculous. He was hitting everything. And then you have a little bit more mature, focused DeAndre Ayton. Yes, they're not the deepest team in the league, but, Monty knows how to use his guys, rotate people. He's got sneaky guys off the bench like Langston Galloway, one of your favorites, Etuan Moore. All those kind of guys do stuff that, you don't see and they're boxing out two guys so the other guy can get the rebound. They do all those little things. So he's built a nucleus now of tremendous young talent with a couple of Grizzly veterans in Paul and Crowder and a crafty little bench that will come in and get it done when they need to. And I love the direction that this team's going. I'm not afraid of that number on the over wins. And I know teams are going to be watching out for them after that 8-0 thing and getting those guys. They're not going to be the sneak up on. We think, we have a night off tonight, we can play soft. They're going to be ready to play the Suns, but I think the Suns are going to be able to step up and do it. And Arizona is one of the states like Texas that are going to let fans in a little sooner than everybody else. So they'll start getting 25% capacity, 50% capacity, when a lot of these other teams will still have zero. And, that's something we'll have to talk about as we start getting into the regular season, because even a 25 or 50% occupancy in your arena in basketball makes a massive difference. It doesn't in football because it's 100,000 people and 10,000 people, you can't even hear them. But, if you have 8,000 people in an arena, you can hear them. So those are going to be advantageous pieces for the teams that are in the states that are able to get fans quicker. So I'm on the Suns bandwagon. I would rank them, off of DFS as Dallas, Miami, and Phoenix are the teams that are my favorite. So if anybody cares.
Right. Well, good stuff there. Again, it's going to come down to price for the three studs for me on any given night. What's happening with Booker's price? Because I do think Chris Paul will set him up, and he is a tremendous shooter, like you said. Love his game. And I think Ayton steps up. I think he gets a little bit more minutes, more touches with Baines and Kaminsky and some of these guys out. So I'll look at those guys on a given night. The rest of the team, I think, is a little bit muddled. So I'm not really excited about playing the 3 or the 4 guys: Bridges, Crowder, Cam Johnson, Dario Saric, this rookie Jalen Smith. I like all those guys, but because I think it's going to be more crowded there and not as many shots, I'm probably going to shy away from those guys on most nights.
So you think the number is too high?
The win total, I think, is too high. Yep. I think they could get over 500, but I think it's much more likely that they're 37 and 35, 38 and 34 than they are going to be 40 and 32.
All right.
One more team to go here. The Sacramento Kings, much lower win total here, 28. on BetUS. And the biggest news here is that Bogdanovic is out of town. And it's kind of funny. We were laughing before the show here that you would think with Bogdanovic out, instead of the three-headed monster that we saw and Hield last year, now there'd be some clarity. You move Buddy Hield into the starting lineup. He's going to get a bunch of more shots, and we're going to be much more apt to play him in DFS. But Coach Walton won't even say for sure that Buddy Hield's going to be the starter. What do you think about that relationship? It doesn't really seem to be in a real positive spot right now.
Well, I've said this for 2 years, every single time we've talked about the Sacramento Kings, and I feel as strong as I do right now about it. I think Vlade Divac, worst general manager, and he set their franchise back 15 years. Now they fired him. He's been gone for a year. He's gone out of there now. So that will improve. But I also think Luke Walton is one of the worst 3 coaches in the league. I don't like the way he treats his players. I think he's too arrogant and self-centered. You can't be that way as a coach. You just can't, and I don't know if it's his upbringing or more of the old school mentality that was taught to him by his dad, Bill Walton, who played for John Wooden and all that stuff. But that's just non-sequential nonsense. The basketball isn't like it was 65 years ago. So I just don't like the job he does. I don't like the way he handles his players. And I think with the better GM in place, which I think they put in place, and I think he made some good moves, way, way better than the stupid ass moves that Vlade made, but like paying Harrison Barnes $80 million and all the insanity of I could list 100 mistakes that Vlade made. But I don't think they take the next step until after this season. When they fire Luke, they'll have another losing season. I'll take the under with these guys. I just don't think they're quite there yet. I will say that they signed De'Aaron Fox to that mega, $200 million max contract. He's a great player. I love him. I think he's going to be terrific in this league for a long time. I think he's playable on any given night, especially if the other team doesn't defend the point guard very well. The big story in the Sacramento preseason camp is Tyrese Halliburton. They absolutely love him. I saw a comment from some of the brass of the Kings saying the 2 guys that have been most impressive this week, they've only been in there like 4 or 5 days so far in camp. Well, actually, it is 11. This is day 10, so they've been in there a while. Is Tyrese Halliburton and Bielitsa. Supposedly he lost weight and got in shape. So those are 2 guys put a little star next to because that came from inside. So you're going to be, Hield, who is a little temperamental. He pouts and things when he doesn't get his shots. So who knows what's going to happen with the Hield Halliburton situation. I'd steer clear of it for now. Listen to this group of guys at the small forward, Andrew, and tell me what you think about them. Harrison Barnes, Jabari Parker, Glenn Robinson III, Justin James, Robert Woodward II, and Daquan Jeffries.
A complete mess. Harrison Barnes is a nice player, but he's like the guy that I play the least because he's really only a cash option. The upside just isn't there. And apparently Jabari Parker is looking good. He's in good shape also, and he's talented enough to get out on the floor, make a big impact, and earn more minutes. So no thanks. I'm going to pass on those guys. And then you get to the 4 spot and the 5 spot, and that's crowded too. We've got Hassan Whiteside in town now, and what happens with him and Rashawn Holmes? And you mentioned Bielitsa looking better. Well, don't forget about Marvin Bagley. I think this is a real good opportunity for him to finally step up and show what he's all about. But it's dicey with that many guys at the 3, 4, and 5 spots.
It's interesting to see how that's going to play out. I agree with you. I think you're going to get a timeshare a lot from Bagley and Bielitsa, and that's a problem because I think both guys could be good, but not for us in DFS. If, on some of the nights you roster and they play 20 minutes, you just can't survive that. So we need to watch that closely. I wonder if they regret taking Bagley over Luka, but that was another one of the wonders of Vlade. But anyway, I would steer clear of the Bagley Bielitsa thing initially to see if they're going to be able to get enough minutes for both of them where they can be super dependent. I think both of them could be. I think Hassan Whiteside is still a good play. I think he's going to be their starting center. He, in chunks of time that he's had a starting position, he leads the entire league in blocks. So, I mean, he's a playable guy. He's obviously weird, inconsistent, the whole 9 yards. But if he can get in groove with De'Aaron Fox, I think Hassan Whiteside can be a very, very, very sneaky player to roster in DFS. Richaun Holmes has always been a backup center. Everybody always cries, get him more minutes. He's a starting center. He's okay. I mean, but I think he'll come in, play his 18 inch, do really well. I think Hassan Whiteside's the main guy there. So, let's watch and see how that plays out. Sacramento has a lot of growth to do, but we have to see how those bigs shuffle around. I think, generally it's going to be, is De'Aaron Fox, can we fit his salary in? And then maybe on given nights, cherry pick one of the other guys, at least initially.
Yep, I like that approach. I'm with you. So speaking of building lineups here, we are at the end of the show, and between now and opening day of the regular season, we're only going to have one more NBA podcast at DFS Coach Talk. We're going to be giving out our lineups for every preseason slate to our members. So again, jump in now and start winning with us. We think we have an edge in preseason based on our previous year's experience. If not, if you're not ready to jump in, Coach, folks will be able to track our record here in preseason on Twitter. Will they not?
Yeah, they will. And, in Discord and on Twitter, we will consistently put up our results night for night in our cash lineup that we're providing on FanDuel. And because we don't provide a full lineup on DraftKings. And everybody will be able to follow along with that. So, again, this is the time to jump in, dfscoachtalk.com. Even if you want to just check it out here for a week during the preseason, join in. That $149 offer, whether you do it through BetUS or us, is going to be there, to the opening, which is in 11 days of the NBA. So, you want to dive in there as well. We've got lineups ready. We're going to, every night we'll be in there 30 minutes before lock, putting all of our information in. There's definitely money to be made in NBA preseason. I mean, again, it's not for the weak of heart. Like I said earlier, you've got to have some gonads to be able to get in there and build lineups. The fun part about it is, and I got to take my hat off to FanDuel. I mean, we've dogged them a lot this year because they had so many problems with their system. It seems like that's finally worked out. Everything's working better. And they did something I thought was really cool for the first time. No one's ever done it that I've seen in this industry. They just didn't put a price on anybody in NBA DFS preseason. Everybody's $100. And it's the way it should be, because it's senseless to put values on any of those preseason, because you're going to get some guys that sit a game or don't sit, another guy that's going to play limited minutes. So you got to be following it, watching the beat writers, watching the feeds, looking at all the input, in stuff that we're posting on Twitter, keep an eyeball out for everything, Roto World, Roto, everything. I mean, they're all have pieces of input that say, hey, this guy is going to play the majority of this preseason game. They want to take a look at him, and decide if he's a keeper or not. And those are the things that win these preseason tournaments and such. So, I always tell everybody, go a little lighter on the preseason because the variance is much higher. But again, we made some good money there last year, so it's not something you'd have to pass and wait on. And then, all the guns come ablazing here in 11 days when we kick off the season on 12/22. So we'd love to have you as part of the Coach Talk family. You're going to get more in-depth NBA. I promise you this, 24/7, man. We are crazy NBA folks. Andrew and Shane have been crushing NFL all season. They're fantastic. And then, we get PGA starting back up here in 3 weeks, which we've done super well at. So join us, change your DFS philosophy. You'll see we have a complete Coach Talk process that we utilize for bankroll management, contest selection. Everything that we do is diagrammed out, thought through all of our processes, and we ask our members, we don't obviously force them, but anything that they can adopt that we're doing with this process will help them really being able to win at DFS in a sustainable, consistent way long term. And that's our goal. We're not looking for that one quick hit and then you lose for 2 months straight and lose it all back, plus some. We're looking for consistent wins day by day, building bankroll, and you do that by following a process, being consistent with your contest selection, and being involved with the Coach Talk community. That's the best way to do it. It's a proven commodity over 6 years, and come join us, and we'd love to have you.
Absolutely. So we hope that you all have enjoyed part 3 of the preseason preview. Again, one more NBA podcast before opening day. So hit the subscribe button, the alert on YouTube, so you get notified when that posts. We're continuing to record 5 NFL podcasts in front of the paywall as always. So tune in for those. We're pumped about Week 14, the main slate coming up here. So we're gonna keep crushing it. That's about it for today. Join us in Discord. If you have any questions, you can find us on Twitter at DFS Coach Talk. You can find the coach at JOESARVADI. You can find me at Language Olympic, and you can find our man Shane at DET Sports Shane. Again, thank you all for joining us. Good luck tonight and this weekend here as NBA preseason kicks off, and we look to join you on our next podcast as we look to crush it in DFS.